The final step in this Pong is we actually need to show our score. So when we hit the right wall over here, we know that the left player, or the red paddle in my case, scores a point. If we hit the left paddle over here, we know that the player on the right, or the blue paddle, has scored a point. So we need a couple text objects here on our screen, and we can simply use Unity's built-in GUI components to accomplish this for us. So we're going to first add the GUI components, and then we're going to code them to all work how we want them to. So you're going to come up here to game object, and this is where we can create all different types of objects. In our case, we're going to select UI and text. Now you need to give Unity maybe a second sometimes, because what Unity does is it looks for this built-in canvas object that Unity creates, and then it applies our text object. If you don't have a canvas object right away, Unity auto adds a canvas, and it also adds this event system, which you should never have to touch because it is some built-in things due to button input on GUI. So we're just going to focus on the canvas and the text object of this. Now, the UI is all rendered inside this canvas component. Hence, while you have kind of this text object inside of the canvas here. And this is a term mostly used in game development or even 3D modeling as called parenting. So the text is parented, or all the UI objects in this case are going to be parented under the canvas object. Now, what is the canvas? Well, as you can see here, here's our game scene, but you need to zoom out a lot and maybe even middle mouse click here and see that the canvas is actually this big old thing right here. Okay, so we are not aligning UI objects over here in our game scene. We are aligning them inside the canvas, which is right here. Here is why. So if you come over to the inspector and we look at kind of these canvas objects, there are three main scripts that are attached on the canvas. We have the canvas itself, a scaler, and a raycaster. First thing we're going to look at right now are just the top two. The canvas. Look at the first property of the canvas. It says render mode. Render mode is screen space overlay, which means the game scene is rendered through the camera, and then the UI is rendered and overlaid or put on top of whatever you see on the game scene. And that's, in our case, what we're going to use. Everything else are set properties that we don't need to worry about. Now, the next thing is the canvas scaler. The canvas scaler allows you to have everything stay the same size consistently, whether you zoom in or zoom out or make the screen size bigger or smaller depending on your screen size. This is what's going to help us. So right now it's set to constant pixel size, which means nothing's ever going to change. Well, we want to change that to just scale with screen size. So I'm going to click that. It then brings up a reference resolution where we could change this. You know, if we were making a widescreen game, I might make this, 1920 by 1080 tall, and then make the UI bigger or smaller compared to that. But in our case, we're just going to keep this 800 by 600. And then that's it for the canvas. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, where's my text? Well, in my case, my text popped up over here. And I'm in this tool right here, the kind of the free transform tool, as you want to call it maybe. Now, as soon as I move this in, you can kind of see down here on my game screen, I'm moving around this thing that says new text. And I can very simply grab this and I can resize these things. I'm going to make it about this big for right now and see what looks good, and then move it here. Now, if you come over here on this text on your inspector, you'll notice there's a text script. And look, there's a text property which says new text. You get all sorts of character stuff, paragraph alignment stuff that you see in every word processor type system. So I'm going to make this 0 starting out. I'm going to make my font size, say, 75. You can make it 50, you can make 100. The important thing with that is when you size it up is you need to make sure that this thing right here is big enough to show it. Now, as soon as I make it smaller, it's hidden. As soon as I make it just big enough, it shows up. Okay, so you need to make sure that this is a good size. The other thing I want to point out is it's hard to see it. So if I come over here, I could center align it. I can make my color, and it pops up a color picker, similar to what we've seen with the paddle. I'm going to make the text white, and now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and kind of move it so that it is centered in here, like that. Now, last but not least, you don't really have to change this, but rect transform is going to be your position X, Y, and Z, similar to what the transform object. The important thing I want to point out here is there is this anchor system where we could change the anchor to the top left or the top right, depending on what our score is, instead of right now set to the middle. In our case, since we have the canvas scalar object set, or to set to, change with screen with the pixel size, the center, it won't really matter what we change if we change this anchor. So you don't really have to touch that, but I just want you to make aware of that it's there. So we're going to have multiple texts. So what I'm going to do, just to make it easier on us, I know this is left score text, so I'm just going to say, I'm going to rename this up here to left text, and I'm going to hit enter to kind of, set that in stone in here. And then I'm just going to do a Command D to duplicate, and now it has a, left text 1, and then I'm just going to move this over here to about somewhat in the middle here so that it looks like that, and of course rename this to just say right text. So we have our UI set. The next step is to now program and start tracking our score. And to do that, we're going to use some hidden variables, and we're also going to then have to access this text script and access the text component of the text script. So to do this, let's first figure out how to track our score. So come over to the ball script, and at the top we're going to need some variables. So we're going to start with public int left score, and set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to make another public int and call it right score, and set that equal to 0. Then, like I said, we need references to our text components. Well, we're actually going to get reference to text, but we need to actually import those references. So at the top, we are going to say using Unity Engine, and we're going to add the UI library. So this is just our import command that we're going to now import the UI components that are not normally imported. Now, I'm adding this. Okay, I'm not modifying this one above. I still need this one because otherwise it will give me an error, because this is my using Unity Engine that allows me to use the start and the update and all the other built-in functionality. So if you get rid of this and just have this, you're going to have a whole bunch of errors. So I need 2 more public variables so I can reference them, but their data type is text, because if you remember in Unity over here, that's the text script that I want to get. And I'm able to have this data type now because I imported the UI. So I'm going to say, I'll just say it left text, and I will say public text of right text. Then I'm going to be accessing and changing all of this down here. Now normally, like we saw with the rigid body RB, and I made some kind of connection here, and this is a private variable, but these are public. So I'm not going to make a connection with these like I did these get component. You could do that if you wanted to, but in my case, I'm just going to make the physical connections in Unity, which we'll do in a second here once we're done coding. So I'm going to scroll down here. What happens with this code? Well, when we hit a wall, we need to change a score. So where does that happen? Well, we just so happens we did this in the last video where we programmed the right and left wall. So if I hit the right wall, that means the left player scores. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to say left score, and I'm just going to say plus plus. Now plus plus basically means add 1 to left score. Whatever value's in left score, add 1. Of course, though, now, once I have changed left score, I've increased it, I need to update the left score text. So what I'm going to say is left text dot. Now this is going to access the components in here, the attributes. In our case, we need to access the text component. So we're going to say dot text, and that is going to be equal to the left score, And then since left score is actually a number variable data type, it actually needs to be converted to a text data type. So we need to call a toString method on left score. And we need to do that once more here. So I need to say down here, if I hit the left wall, I know that the right score needs to say plus plus. And I know that the right text dot text is equal to right score dot to string. Save it and then come over to Unity. Now, if you click on the ball here, you'll notice on the ball script now we have these left text and right text variables along with left score and right score that's going to track that for us. And as you can see, these are set to none, but they need some text object. So we need to drag and connect our text object. So what we're going to do with the ball selected here is we're going to take the left text, drag it down until it kind of highlights, and connect it there. We're going to do the same thing with the right text. I'm going to click, drag, and highlight it. And now you'll see that I have the left text and the right text connected to each of those variables. And that's making that physical connection. Now I could have said get component and then say search for something in the game scene called left text or right text, but the problem then starts to arise of what happens if I have multiple text objects? Are they named the same? I have to name them the same as my script wants them. What if I'm a level designer and not the programmer and I don't know what they had them named? So this right here is just that physical connection that we don't even have to worry about anything with that. So now hit play, and we should be able to test our scores by getting out of the way and seeing that the left paddle and the right paddle scores both work. And as you can see, the scores work. And they continue to count up. And that's Pong. You just made a full, complete Pong game.